Hi guys, this is Sunny Chayes. You are with me today on the Sunny Chayes Show in UBN, Hollywood, California. And today, as I've been doing every week since the election, I bring a voice to assist us in our spiritual awakening, our spiritual activism, our spiritual warrior positioning, and also how to come from a place of strength, clarity, and listening, and then action. And I have a master of all of that and more. I am extremely grateful and excited to bring to you today Michael Bernard Beckwith, who is a master for most everyone who ever hears what he has to say and being in his presence. He is the founder and spiritual director of Agape International Spiritual Center. He is a world-renowned speaker, inspirational human being on this planet, activist, and phenomenal author. I have all of his books, I think. And he also has music to be inspired by, and of course, the Agape every Wednesday and every Sunday to either live stream or actually be in the house, which let me just tell you all, it's way better. I know there are LA people who live stream, but it's just much more phenomenal to be there in person. It's a happening. So without any further ado, let us bring on the wonderful, the honorable Michael Bernard Beckwith. Hello, hello.
Hey, Sunny.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. You know, I normally don't do this, but I actually have a question that I've written down that I want to ask you to sort of bring your wisdom to. And because of your voice in every aspect of what voice means, at this point I feel that we are really called upon to use our voice and find our voice. I just wrote down this little question: how can we deepen our resonance, connect with sacred power, and how can we combine and weave together with sacred heart desire and develop the love and sustainable circuitry to use our mature, sacred physical voice to express our true inner devotion to humanity?
And it has so many to it. The average person on the planet is living in reaction and not necessarily living in intentionality. So I think when an individual begins to mature spiritually, have a wide intention for their life, followed by a spiritual practice, the circle you're talking about on the physical level, the mental level, the emotional level, and the subtle body levels become more and more powerful, so that it carries the thought of inspiration based on your intention. So I have taught over the years that many people suffer from an intention deficit disorder. Their intention is governed by things that happen in the world. And so they're living life primarily reacting to things rather than proactive, being about something. So if we have an intention for who we want to be, and an intention for the kind of world we want to live in, and an intention for the kind of gifts that we want to share, and we begin to walk in that direction every single day, then the universe supports us. We become stronger, and we find ourselves less and less reacting to circumstances, world of phenomena, and we find ourselves more and more responding from that deep sense of resonance and coherence, and that is being cultivated by intentionality and spiritual practice. Then when we speak, there is a resonance because we're congruent with our real self. It's not just noise. It's not just a reactive noise. It's actually substantial energy that's coming through us. It becomes more of a declaration. It becomes a decree. It becomes an affirmation. It becomes directional. It becomes a law. So that question has multiple layers to it. And I think that's my first entry into the answer to it.
Well, I got inspired to just write that down when I knew you were going to be on the show. I thought I want to get to it and do it today because we need it. I feel like, so we can kind of wrap around with that. And one other thing that I want to say to you is that after the election, of course, I know a lot of us were sort of in shock, and it was kind of a process of I heard that in Wikipedia, the word that was the most used, every year there's a word that's the most used. And the word that was most used in 2016 was surreal. And yes, I mean, we are clear about why that is. And so then to realize that it is real. I mean, on some level. And that's
Right.
the other area that I would like to talk about, because I feel that there's an outer happening and then there is an inner awakening as far
Yes.
as what's going on, like you were starting to say about the groups coming together, the communities, the tribes, the
Right.
yes. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, there was a period of time where people were kind of lethargic and apathetic, just
Yes.
assumed that the other candidate would land in office
Mm-hmm.
because there was a certain kind of elitism around who would actually vote for an individual that had no political experience and no service in the armed forces, and who faces tremendous liability in terms of bankruptcies and always being in court. And there was so much baggage around the individual who was very egregious in how he does business. People just assumed, no, this is going to be an impossibility.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were right on one level, because over 3 million people voted for Clinton as opposed to Donald. So on one level, that was correct. Most people did not vote for him, but this strategist won the Electoral College. And so we're faced with that as an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at him as an evolutionary trigger that's moving people out of apathy, lethargy, elitism, entitlement, and actually having to, because of the contrast, people actually have to articulate what they want. Before, there was no articulation,
Mm-hmm.
But now people are actually coming to grips with, do we really want a society that's going to live with Islamic phobia or homophobia or Mexican phobia or any so-called other phobia? Do we really want that kind of society? Do we really want that kind of world? Do we really want a world in which hate and mudslinging is normal? And so people are looking at the contrast of this man that gets into a fight with almost anybody. Do we really want that? And so now that we know what we don't want, people can begin to articulate what we do want. Mm-hmm. And then more than just articulate it, which it begins with the vision, it begins with articulation, but then how are we going to walk in that direction? And so I often teach that everyone arrived on this planet with assignments. We all knew before we incarnated here as spiritual beings that we were going to go through some vibrational turbulence, that there was going to be the death throes of an old paradigm, of which he represents: grab and glab and get and get as much as you can, and by any means necessary, might makes right, bullying. He represents a particular way of being in the world. And so everyone knew they were going to come into a world in which that old paradigm was dying and a new paradigm was emerging, and there was going to be turbulence. There's always a turbulent period of time when an old is dying and a new is being born. If you go back to the old newspapers, there used to be a headline that said, society is coming to an end because there's not enough wild Mustangs. Ooh. People actually believed that. Ooh. And then, because the population was growing faster than Mustangs were being bred. But of course, there was the advent of the automobile, and so, but there was a lot of consternation going on at the time, a lot of fear and a lot of competition and a lot of stealing of horses. There was so much going on as the old was dying and the new was being born. And so here you have a situation where you have an old paradigm of strip mining. We're going to rape the earth for more oil, even though we don't need any. We're going to support the coal industry, even though the coal industry should die. It's not necessary to have a coal industry. You have clean energy, and you don't need to pollute the oceans with coal. That industry needs to die. But here you have this man in a cabinet that's trying to support an old paradigm. That's equivalent to supporting the typewriter industry when the computers were emerging.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We got to protect these people's jobs. No, we don't. We have to usher them into the green industry. So what you're looking at is a war of paradigms, the old and the new. And so those who are in the new paradigm have to be more responsible in articulating that new paradigm, whether it's in education, or whether it's in politics, whether it's in the prison industrial system, whether it's in medicine. There's many new things that are trying to emerge. And the old people, I don't mean age, I'm talking about in their mind, are afraid of letting go. Matter of fact, he always talks about the good old days. But they weren't good for everybody.
No.
They weren't good for my people.
No.
And so we're talking about not good and evil. We're talking about progressive or stagnant. And he represents stagnant energy. And those that are on the progressive end have to find their particular assignments. What is it that we are to do individually? And what is it that we are to do collectively to usher in the next way of being on this planet? And it can't be just getting more stuff and becoming multimillionaires and consumerism and materialism. It can't be that. That's old. That's dying. It has to be of the heart, generosity, love, kindness, building a kind and just global society in which everyone is included and no one is excluded.
And that's absolutely perfect. Thank you for all of those beautiful words and those thoughts. And I'm thinking about some statistics that came forward right after, even from Michael Moore, where he said, and many other people said, that really about 77% of the American people have the values of what you just said. I mean,
right.
Honestly. And yet the small group of people decided to vote. And there were many, many among us who did not. And a lot of the most beautiful thinkers and big-hearted people and connect the dots types and beautiful, incredible minds out there, and mothers and fathers who care about 7 generations out, or at least 3, just didn't vote because they didn't feel that it mattered, that somebody else was going to take care of it. Sort of mom and dad will take care of it. It's not my area. And I think that's part of the message that we're all getting. And not that long ago, there were communities where people all got together and decided, sort of where the pie shop was going to be, or where was the school going to be, or let's all raise a barn together. I mean, that wasn't that long ago when we were connected in that way, where we made decisions that really made sense for all the peeps in our community. And now, we've gotten to a place where we have been a bit separate. Well, if it works for me or if it takes away from me, I'm gonna fight, and I'm gonna sort of be smaller about it and also a little more fearful. So I think that is what we are seeing blatantly in front of our face, and that is what I think we also have the opportunity to say, hell no.
Right.
No.
That's why I call him an evolutionary trigger, because he is actually waking up people, bringing them out of the lethargy and the apathy that you just described, and having people find their particular voice and their particular gift that they're to give at this particular time. We have coalitions now that are forming with groups that had the same mission statements that never even talked to each other all these years. Yes. They were in their own silos, and he's brought them together to create an evolutionary contact with each other, evolutionary collaborations. And so he has done more for the civil rights movement and more for the coalition of peace on this planet than has happened since the civil rights movement, since people were trying to get rid of segregation. He's brought great coalitions together because people could actually see, you know what, we don't want this. We want something else. And as you say, most of the people did not want that, but they either didn't vote or they did vote, but the vote didn't count because of the antiquated electoral college system that does not allow for one vote, one person to take place. And people are beginning to understand now that we don't have a democracy. It's just something that's marketed, but we have a republic. And we have a republic that has an electoral college, so that my vote in California is not equal to a vote somewhere else in another part of the world. People are now learning civics. They're learning about their government. I thought we were in a democracy. No, England has a democracy. Canada is closer to democracy, but the United States does not have a democracy. And the coffin, the nail was put in that coffin when the Supreme Court chose George Bush to be president,
Yes.
and not allow those votes to be counted in Florida. So democracy has been dead for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this particular, I think Agent Orange has just allowed everybody to wake up and to say, wow, we're not in a democracy.
Yes.
My vote didn't count. And most of the people didn't want this to happen, but it happened in anyway. So it's a wake-up call.
It is such a wake-up call. And one other thing that you bring to thought for me is really the maturity that we're now asked to be. Sort of like we need I shouldn't say need, but I notice so many people getting educated, kind of getting mature about this. It's like, well, mom and dad, whoever we thought were running things, this is not how it goes. And actually, guess what? We pay the bills. We, the people, pay the bills. They don't work for, we don't work for them. They work for us.
Servants.
They are our servants
of the people.
As we used to say, for real. And so this is something that I think many people sort of don't get that. And now they are. Now, and like you say, Civics 101, 202, 303. Come on, people. What is the House of Representatives? How many people are there? What does it all mean? Who has the balance of power? Let's get real about seeing who our assembly people are, who our Congress people are, who our, State Board of Equalization in our states are. These are the people that we also can pay attention to. By the way, guys, there's a vote March 7th. Please pay attention and actually vote, because there's stuff you can do in your own community, especially in California. Just a little, a little commercial for that.
Well, absolutely. I think that people are beginning to realize that they do have more power than they thought. For instance, when they were trying to get rid of that committee on ethics, and it was almost gone, and people found out about it and began to call and write their Congress people and their Senate, and that was kiboshed.
Yes.
They were on their way to getting rid of that committee, which meant that the judicial system and bad senators could just run amok and not be held accountable for their egregious actions. Mm-hmm. And so now, of course, we live in a paradigm where small groups of people control a lot. However, it's time for the people to wake up and find their particular place in the breaking down of the old and the emerging of the new, so that our voice is heard, and that we find ways to make a difference. And perhaps some of those ways will be that we actually build structures outside of the government.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't have to wait for the government to do things. You can build your own schools. You can, build your own businesses. You can do so much.
Yes.
Without waiting for Uncle Sam to lead you.
I love that. And I think that is really one of the huge messages and the huge gifts that are emerging from this, is that, what? We can do that. We can come together. We absolutely can, in business and many other ways. And the other thing I'm seeing that I really love is the complacency being cracked open, and knowing that, well, my life as a privileged white person, many white people enjoy. Well, all white people enjoy white privilege, and most of us don't even know it, because that's what white privilege is.
Right.
But to be
oblivious to it.
that's the definition of it. Being able to understand that our brothers and sisters in prison, for example, for something very ridiculous like smoking a plant that grows, that God created in the ground, that's just not okay. Me as a mom, I don't want that for another mom or a mom's child to have that be happening. No, that's not okay with me. So I feel like that is what's happening too, where we are having coalitions, like you say, that were not ever hands reaching across this state, and with social media and all of that, we can gather all over the place, and that is again, another one of the gifts that's happening.
Absolutely. And then all of that must be shared in the spirit of love.
Yes.
That sweet, sentimental, romantic friendship love. But when you go back to your first question and ask about the resonance, and you ask about, our particular bodies being able to hold more energy, the most powerful energy on the planet is love. And that's a total givingness of the spirit without any sense of withhold. So as individuals grow in their awareness of self-love and appreciation, and then they grow in the awareness of loving the neighbor as thyself, and then they become aware that the neighbor is not just the person that lives next to you on your block, but the neighbor is everyone. When we live under the vibration of love, we can be spiritual activists and spiritual warriors, but carry the vibration of love, because we want to build a society that's undergirded by love and kindness and compassion. And this is very important, because oftentimes people mistake love with sentimentality, but it's actually very, very powerful. You look at Nelson Mandela and the work that he did. You look at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and James blocking his name right now. You look at His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There's a vibration of love, even in the immediacy and the urgency of issues that have to be dealt with. We don't want to lose our soul to get what we want. We want what we want to be infused with our soul. You see?
Yes. And actually, I'm going to throw one name in there. Another activist and person I absolutely love and honor is Congressman John Lewis.
Yes, John Lewis. I mean, he paid a tremendous price with his life to assist in the evolution of our society. And so we have to honor the work that he's done, and we have to honor the work that he's continuing to do.
Absolutely. In his 80s, and he's still on it, and he speaks about love. And
James Lawson is the name I was looking for.
Oh, yes. I think of some things that Congressman Lewis has been saying recently about the gatherings and the marches and everything. And he, of course, talks about his experience at 17 years old as a freedom fighter and all of the things that he's done, and where that really was about the love. And so that completely echoes and reflects what you're saying about the activism, and yet having it come from that place of love and knowing that that's really what it's about.
Right. Yeah, when we really understand what a spiritual warrior is, we juxtapose it to other warriors. The other your traditional warrior protects boundaries and borders. There's a line angrily drawn in the sand. This is my country, that's your country. And warriors generally protect these kind of boundaries. A spiritual warrior breaks through boundaries. They break through their own inner boundaries, so that they become more aware of the light and the luminosity and the intelligence that's within them. And they break through that inner boundary, and then they break through boundaries of separation. So that as a spiritual warrior, I'm breaking through the boundary of separation with you or anyone else that I meet. I'm not creating a boundary. I'm not protecting a boundary. I am breaking through a boundary. So when we talk about a spiritual warrior or spiritual activist, these are individuals that are breaking the boundary of separation and allowing natural boundaries to stay intact. Like our physical body needs to stay healthy. We don't want to be bleeding and leaking all over the place, you see. But the other boundaries are man-made boundaries that at the end of the day mean nothing other than how we get to collaborate with each other and how we get to work with each other as nations, as cities, as individuals, you see.
Yes. And one thing I want to ask you about is, again, with my own sort of broken heart and getting through a day, because I build myself up and I do my meditations and I feel hopeful and I have amazing people on the show, and then I get another onslaught of news. And I just want to tell you that I feel like I have a loyalty to, how do I say this, to pain. In other words, and then I'm moving past that, and that's what I want you to help me with.
Loyalty to pain, is that what you said?
In other words, I feel it's like if someone dies, there's a loyalty to feeling grief. There's a loyalty to feeling upset, not just skipping around in life and saying nothing matters. There's sort of this loyalty to feeling, the gravitas or the, what it means to me. The loyalty when I see, I saw some pictures on Facebook today of lynchings. Like there's a loyalty to just this just astounding, audacious pain that I have as my brothers and sisters. And yet I know that I need to, I'm okay that I feel deeply about things.
Yes.
And yet balancing that out with then becoming the sacred warrior, where also in warrior land, in, like, for example, China or Japan, a warrior was like in martial arts, was so strong that they did not act out. I mean, they were so strong that they were more in the, it was all about the offensive. So my question is,
Defensive.
yes, how to navigate all of what I just said.
Yeah, well, I think one, we don't pretend that certain destructive, harmful, and hurtful things are happening on the planet. We don't go into the ostrich with the head in the soil pretending it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And what happens is we grow, we use the word maturity, we develop a very fierce compassion. And fierce compassion is a very high form of love because it is the understanding of the lack of understanding, but it asks the question, how can I serve? Mm. And so when you look at sympathy, you look at empathy, and you look at compassion, compassion vibrates the highest. Sympathy says, I know how you feel. I'm feeling it with you. Empathy says, I'll feel for you. And then compassion says, how can I serve? Mm. I understand that what's going on is the result of a lack of understanding, ignorance. How can I serve? And so by embracing the gravitas of any given moment, then we ask, how can I serve? Mm. And everyone has different gifts, different missions, and different talents. So everyone is not going to serve the same way. You're going to serve by bringing people onto your program to help enlighten individuals to a perspective of compassion and generosity and love. Somebody else may pen a magnificent song that's going to uplift. Somebody may run for a political office, and somebody may support somebody in running for a political office. Somebody may dive into the educational system and begin to disrupt the insanity that goes on in some of these systems, whether it's medicine or education or prison system or politics. Everyone has a gift to give, but it's compassion. So compassion is not, again, like love, compassion is not serve me. Compassion says, what can I do to alleviate suffering? Mm. That's where compassion lives. Mm. How can I eliminate the suffering? And I think if we ask that question, the universe answers every question that you ask. Mm. And if you live with, what is mine to do? How can I eliminate suffering? We'll all be gifted with our particular assignment. Mm. So it's not pretending that bad things aren't happening. Yeah. But it's asking the question, what am I called to do? Why did I take this incarnation? I was speaking with the board president of Agape recently, and we were speaking about this of what's happening in our nation and the hate that's been fomenting and the overt racism that's now happening. People feel more safe to be a racist again, and the immigration ban against Muslims that happened recently. And she was speaking that her daughter, who grew up at Agape, by the way, a very hard day with this. She was in her room sulking, being mad and angry that these people were stuck in the airport and couldn't be united with families, and some were being sent back to probably torture or death because of to leave the country they were coming from. But in the middle of that, she said to herself, wait a minute, I've got a law degree. Ooh. And she called up the ACLU. They got her down to the airports immediately, and she began to process cases of people who were being stranded in no man's land at the airport. So she understood the gravity of the situation. But instead of hanging out and, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh my God, this shouldn't be happening. She said, what is mine to do? She got a law degree. So she's been at the airports for a few days, basically assisting legally the individuals who were being detained or trying to be deported. Now, everybody doesn't have a law degree, but everybody's got something, you see.
Yes, that is such a beautiful example of that. And I happen to know, because my cousin was a co-author of Prop 64. So which was the legalizing of marijuana in California.
We should legalize America.
Yeah, well, that's what they're working on. It's the National Drug Policy Alliance, guys. Check it out and see where you can support, because it's a national organization to legalize it all. And by the way, I think I might have told you this, but that night on November 8th or 9th at 12:01, we were signing people out of prison that night, literally at 12:01. So that's continuing right now. And now, though, I will say my cousin's up against it because there's battles on every front now with the new administration. So, like that.
They're trying to decriminalize opioids. You know, the hemp oils and the CBD oils. They're trying to make that as a stage, as a class
One.
drug.
Yes,
and
exactly.
and maybe have to get it through a prescription. Even Christie was trying to sign a bill recently, I think today, to have that passed in his state. So there are some adversity that we're facing where natural plants are concerned, you know, and their derivatives that assist people in eliminating pain, like the hemp oil, CBD. It eliminates pain and inflammation, and they want to take that off the market. You know.
Well, and the thing that when we talked about it so many times during the campaign, was that it just made absolutely no sense to me. And my cousin said, "You're the perfect advocate," because I don't smoke pot. It's never been my thing. But
I don't either.
But I never could understand why we're actually considering it okay to take something that literally grows in the ground, like coffee or chocolate, that sort of, alters you a bit, and be able to take people and actually put them in prison for it. And so and also there's so many studies going on. There are like 60 different elements in the plant that can be not only just pain, but just a myriad of things. I mean, it's just, how can we ever know what is in a natural plant until we actually study it and work it? And what I was going to say about that too is, because of you were saying about the very despondent person who ended up at the airport, bringing her love and lawyer expertise. That day, I mean, literally people were pulled out of the DPA, and they were down there, and I mean, it was phenomenal to see the heart raising up. And I think that you might also talk to, this is a little more on the really the spiritual end, but I'm hearing from different people who are of the angelic realm and different areas like that, that there's so much light, if we can talk about that for a second if you want to, being activated because of this craziness and darkness.
Well, absolutely. The appearance of darkness is just providing a contrast, and the light is much brighter. Mm-hmm. You know, when you just look at it spiritually and scientifically, a thought that emerges from the field of love oscillates at a much higher and much more powerful frequency than the thoughts that emanates from a sense of separation or hate. And so small groups of people vibrating with love are way more powerful than large groups of people vibrating with hate and separation. Now we're at a time in which people are really asking big questions and are becoming mature spiritually. And a tremendous amount of light is being released on the planet at this time in human history, even though corporate media will broadcast to you the worst case scenarios in the human condition and broadcast you that which is dramatic happening on a regular basis. There's so much good happening on this planet. There's so much connectivity. There's so much love. There's so much generosity. There's so much philanthropy. There's so much people shifting from business as usual to how can I help? How can I serve? It's a tremendous amount of light on this planet. Now, you wouldn't necessarily see it watching the news, but you get on the internet, you go to other countries, you let go of your fear of traveling, and you will see that there are so many people on the planet that want the same thing that you do. They want a peaceful planet. They want food and shelter for their children. They want education. They want good medical care. They don't want to be in a society or in a world that's producing more weapons and prisons than schools and health facilities.
And the arts.
And the arts that uplift the spirit. So I would say that though it appears to be very dark, winning. It always does. One candle changes the context and the content of one room.
Well, I really want to compliment you not only for everything you just said and bringing that to us. We had the opportunity to be together on the 75th or the 70th anniversary of the autobiography of a yogi, and that was right after the election. It was sort of that interim time between the election and the inauguration, which felt like anything was possible, anything could sort of like a stratego game. I mean, something can
Right, right.
happen, and you were at that time. I mean, again, people have been brokenhearted and just with ships without a rudder for quite a bit. And the words that you spoke that night were so magnificent and important and just from I don't even know where, which is often how I feel when you speak at Agape. Things come in with you that are just nobody speaks like you. Nobody brings it like you. I'm just gonna say, and
Thank
I was
you.
so
Thank you.
grateful, and it really uplifted me. And what you're saying too, again, for people out there, I just feel like, yes, I mean, we have our sacred warrior activism that we can take on, and we can get very creative right now. I mean, people are finding new ways to do it, and yet that is the walk, the kind of tightrope, feeling as I say, having the loyalty to the situation, having the loyalty to our own hearts, and also finding our purpose, finding what's ours to do in this house,
Right.
in this American soul that we want to address and heal and take care of.
Absolutely. That is the question we have to live with. And at the end of the day, I mean, if we look back our lives, we will notice that we grew more substantially during times of darkness or a crisis in our life or something
Mm,
happened that we had no control of. When we look back at those times in our life, those were the times that signaled great growth for us. We
mm,
were able to focus, reorder our priorities, change our habits really fast. And even though at the time it may have been very, very excruciating and intense, when we look back, we wouldn't change one iota of that seeming negative thing that happened because of what it birthed in us
mm-hmm.
and what the kind of beings we became, the kind of the character of the etch of God in our own soul that became uncovered. So this is a moment in world history, national and international, where there are certain stagnant energies temporarily on the throne. So it's a very negative time. But we're going to look back and realize if it wasn't for this, then certain other efforts and certain other coalitions and certain other things would not have been born.
Mm,
So out of the darkness, which is the womb of creativity, there are shoots of possibility that are springing up
mm.
that will be evident now because of the contrast. And so you look back on even national, international things that have happened, uh, child labor laws, women not being able to vote, Mussolini, Hitler, you go down the list of all these people on the planet. Whenever their reign was over, there was a great compassion and a soul reflection of, we can't let this happen again.
Yes.
And what are we going to do? And a great maturity happened
Mm-hmm.
until lethargy and apathy sinks in again. You see, I just thought how
Yes.
interesting it was during that period of time you just mentioned, when I was at the anniversary of the autobiography of a yogi, and people were really appreciative of President Barack Obama during
Yes.
that time. They were able
Yes.
to see so many things that he did under the radar that they didn't even
Absolutely.
know he even did,
Yes.
because it wasn't touted. It wasn't. He was going against all the odds to get it done. And now that the 45 is undoing a lot of those things, people are able to see, oh my God, he
Yes.
did that. He put these sanctions on the police department. He hired these people to make sure that police brutality wasn't going on. There's so many things that 45 is saying that's a waste of money. We have to get rid of that. But people were in this like very high appreciation.
Yes.
It was taken for granted,
Yes.
you know.
I feel like that's even growing. And speaking of knowing and well, just one thing I want to say is that 75 years ago, this week, this we're doing a pre-record, so this will be later. But on February 18th was the executive order for the Japanese internment camps, which it just also breaks my heart right now.
Yeah.
And thinking that happened, all these beautiful Japanese Americans who lost their farms, their money, their everything, and put in these internment camps for 3.5 years or longer. And I think, okay, guys, come on. That happened in America. Like, let's just pay attention. Let
I
us.
went to school with individuals whose parents were in those internment camps.
Mm.
I mean, I went to high school with these people, and they shared with me the gut-wrenching stories of their parents losing everything and having to start over once they got out. They didn't get their stuff back.
No.
They didn't get their house back. They didn't get their cars back. And that happened in America, and many of the people are alive today that knew about it or were involved with being incarcerated.
Yes.
So we have to be vigilant.
Well, yes, and you were talking about a number of different things, and one word that comes to my mind that ties a bit of this together for you to give a little another lesson to us is I'm going to use the word fear. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit when you were talking about the people in quote unquote power right now and the old paradigm people holding on to it. I think of people holding on to a boat that is sinking. And, we even think of this when we're manifesting something new. We what we know, like they say, what's in the future that we don't know, we're more comfortable with, even if we hate it, what we know. So many elements of the human way can be to just so
Yes.
just so hard to hold on to something, even though it is sinking, even though it's the worst thing for us. And if we just let go of the boat and go into the water, and go to the next thing, the island, the whatever it is. And I feel like that's a lot of what's going on right now. And so I'd love for you to talk, because I feel like if you can help us with that, we can, move to something good.
The imagination needs to be re-engineered. And people are often, this is the ego. Mm-hmm. Ego makes you look at what you think you're going to lose. So you hold on, and your spirit is offering you what you're going to gain. Mm-hmm. And so like if a woman is being in a situation where there's domestic violence, and they keep going back out of fear of letting go, the ego is saying, or their survival is saying, stay with the devil you do know. Stay within this confines. You know how to survive here. Mm-hmm. in the confines of this domestic violence. And with the right use of imagination, one can begin to see there's other things outside this door, outside this relationship. There are friendships, there's support, etc. Well, in that same way, people that are holding on to the old, they see loss because they're not in tune with the fact that we're dealing with something that is unlimited, illimitable good. And with the right use of our imagination, innovativeness, and creativity, you can be a harbinger of new ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. You don't have to keep dumping pollution into the ocean because you want to keep the coal industry alive. You don't have to keep warehousing people for nonviolent offenses because you want to make a profit. Mm-hmm. There's ways of embracing this evolutionary impulse in which it's instead of a sum total win-loss, it's a win-win situation. But it takes spiritual maturity, it takes spiritual guts, it takes fortitude, it takes courage to go outside the harbor of what you're used to.
Yes.
Number 45 is used to having lawsuits.
Yes.
He's used to cheating people.
Yes.
In business, he's used to winning at somebody else's expense.
Always.
That's the old paradigm.
Yes.
The true paradigm is you win, I win.
Yes.
We win. We work together. It's called collaboration, not immature competition.
Yes.
Whether that's in business or relationship or whatever the case may be. And so we don't want to build a world that has its genesis in fear. No. We want to build a world that has its genesis in vision and love. Mm-hmm. A vision of a kind and just global society that works for everyone, and love and compassion is its impetus. Now, just on this point, just the fact that I said a kind and just global society for everyone smacks against those who are in a small paradigm, because they're drawing a circle around America and saying it's just us. We don't care about the rest of the world. We just want to protect Americans. Well, that's a very immature, myopic, limited point of view that the internet already broke down. We're already a global society with travel, with the internet. There is no my country, right or wrong. That's a terrible phrase in a terrible state of consciousness, we are global citizens.
Yes.
What affects me affects somebody in China, Japan, the Middle East. We have to think along those lines. If I sneeze right now, somebody in Africa is going to say, bless you.
That's right.
We're all one. And so that, again, that's an old paradigm speaking. We're going to take care of Americans. We're going to build a border. That's old. It's old.
It's
Now
so
embrace the next level of our evolution as a society, as a
yes.
species.
Yes. And two things that I want to mention or kind of piggyback on that or bring down further is with fear, also, I think of the fear that is created not only in letting go of the boat for, my own thing about leaving, but also the fear that's being propagated right now of the other and being afraid of, we're talking about the Japanese, or right now we're afraid of the Muslim and what that means. And I have to tell you that when I speak to different people, I am amazed at how little people know about Islam, Muslims, anything about their practice, what's in the Quran, and
Right.
that, and then which I'd love you to speak about, and then also, as you know, Martin Luther King said in the '60s, he said, I'm paraphrasing, but be careful, Americans, where you point your guns, because they will at some point be pointed back at you or at us. And that is, he was sort of talking about the idea that, I mean, as you know, he was not a nationalist. He was a globalist. And way back then, when that really made sense then, it makes sense now. And it's spilling everywhere. We can't, it's like building a wall is just, I mean, it's just insane. Like people say, well, have you heard of tunnels, people? It's like, it's just,
Tunnels, helicopters, airplanes,
come on.
please.
So,
It's
but the,
symbolic. It's not gonna. It's trying to do a symbolic gesture to embrace a certain level of the population that's illiterate and in fear. And again, it's an old dynamic that
yes.
right before something dies, like an animal in the jungle, it makes its loudest noise during the death throes. It makes its last stand. And so you're looking at the last stand of racism and the bigotry. You're looking at
Yay.
the last stand of homophobia. You're looking at the last stand of an insane pseudo-patriotic nationalism. The last stand of that. The people in the music industry, people in education have already handled the fact that whether a person is a Mexican or a Muslim or a black or white, whatever the case may be, that we're one. It's just other parts of the society that have not been engaged in a thoroughfare of being with so-called others that are in fear. They're still carrying stereotypes of the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, Barack Obama broke a lot of those stereotypes, being president for 8 years and seeing his family, seeing two people that loved each other, no scandals coming out of the White House.
Oh, yeah.
A family going to school,
Yes.
Doing what families do. And it shattered forever a stereotype of the African American. Of course, many people still holding on to stereotypes, but that was one of his greatest feats, just to be noble.
Yes.
And have a level of dignity.
Yes, the grace and yes, I mean, just anytime I heard him speaking off camera, he even had a small conversation. I know you've been involved with him, and I was able to hear him on a conference call, and just the humility and the gratitude that man has, that many of you may not have been able to witness, just because you may not think it's real. It's real, and. I love that man, and of course, I miss him more than ever now. And so
there's a whole movement. There's a whole movement with T-shirts and everything saying, "Don't leave, don't leave."
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh. Well, I want to let you know that our engineer,
the president only has as much power as the people.
Yes.
And this is what also President Barack Obama tried to remind the citizens, that I can't do this.
No.
I'm not a king. I'm not a dictator. You have to become involved with what you want. And that's what's happening now.
Yes.
But because of the contrast, that people are now becoming involved politically and otherwise as well.
Well, and honestly, when we had this conference call a few days after the election, that's exactly what he said. He said, "Get to work, people. You know,
Yeah.
I cry and be sad for a few days, a few weeks maybe." And he sort of laughed. And then he said, "And then let's get to work." I mean, and he meant it, and we're doing it. And speaking of that, my engineer John says we have a few more minutes, so I want to make sure that we wrap it up in a way that makes sense. I mean, I could talk to you all day. And guys, definitely come to Agape International Spiritual Center in LA. It is really one of the more amazing happenings that you can go into. I mean, so much happens there, on stage, off stage, with the people. It's sort of astounding what happens there.
And it's diverse and inclusive.
Oh my goodness!
When individuals come to Agape, they're always shocked at the fact that everybody's there.
Yes.
You have people from Iraq, Iran, you have people from Japan and Norway and Switzerland and all across the United States, Black, white, Latina. It's everybody's there, straight, gay. Everybody's there worshiping the one God.
Absolutely.
And if it's the world that other people are afraid of, we celebrate.
Well, and that's one of the last things that I want to say, and I know we have to go up, but I want to say that your point about, the listening that we can do, and I want to share with you guys again that reminder that, if we take a moment, I was saying, this is Black History Month, and I was saying if we can take a moment, 5 minutes a day to just research something that we've never researched before, or some people or something that we thought that we hated, it would be so incredible to do that. And just something that you think you hate, check it out and see what it is. And I just think that would be a cool practice in honoring Black History Month.
Well, it's called learning.
A novel concept, and learning, listening, and putting one in somebody else's shoes. And I think that's
right.
Come on.
Passionate enough to walk, as the Native Americans would say, to walk a mile in your brother's moccasins.
Yes.
And it's at the end of the day, and at the end of the week, you do not want to be the same person that began that week. You actually want to have grown. You want to have released opinions that don't serve you, spirit, perceptions. You want to grow so that every year you can actually look back and see that being that existed in 2016, it doesn't exist 2017.
Absolutely.
I'm different.
Amen to that.
This is what it's all about.
Yes.
So I want to invite people like you just did to come to Agape on a Wednesday evening, or one of the 3 services or 4 services on a Sunday. They can go to agapelive.com and see what's going on there, what's being offered, as well as they can watch it on the live stream, or they can actually come. And I want to invite them to one of my annual meditation retreats.
Yes.
It takes place in May 25th through the 28th at the Royal Way Ranch. It's going to be very powerful. People coming from all around the world. And I teach meditation, visioning. We have yoga, we have good food. But this year, it's entitled Whole Soul Devotion, Navigating Through Vibrational Turbulence. So I'm actually going to assist people in being able to have their center during turbulent times. And so you go to agapelive.com, you can register for the meditation retreat, or you can come to the service, 6:30 a.m., 8:30, 11 a.m., 6:30 at night. It's the United Nations of spiritual communities.
It is, and there's a beautiful bookstore there, Alice's Quiet Mind Bookstore, which I know is in renovation, but will be back up soon.
It's up now.
Oh, it is. Oh, yay! Oh my God!
For people who don't know, we had a pipe that broke, a water baptism,
a baptism for sure.
We were out of commission for 4 services, but we're back now.
Oh,
and there's
beautiful.
some construction going on. There's no carpet down right now, but you know what? People throng to get back, because those who had taken Agape for granted when they couldn't come because of public safety, now everybody's like, wow, I got to take care of my community. I got to give donations. I got to make sure that they're going to be around because I need them. So temporarily, it's like, oh my God, this is really important.
I just want to, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I know we have to go. And I really want to tell you guys this, which is true, that after the baptism of Agape, there was a service that the first one I think that opened, or the second one I went to, it was a deluge day or night in LA, which people usually don't get out and about in LA. And I really wanted Michael as your, as your spiritual sister to come and support Agape and to support you. I thought, oh, there'll be 19 people here or something. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to put on my galoshes and get my butt over there. And I'm telling you guys, it was packed. It was packed. I mean, I was happy I was there, but you sort of didn't need me. I mean, it was packed. And I just thought,
Sonny,
you know
we
what?
need you all the time.
Thank you. And it was just, I just looked around and it just broke my heart open. I thought, you know what? And by the way, I love it without the carpet. I think you guys should just paint it or something, whatever is.
We're thinking about it, but we need to baffle the sound a little bit.
Right. That's true.
We're looking at what we can do once the insurance companies kick in and we have the money to do what we need to do. We're not going to do a lavish situation, because our focus, even before the baptism and the christening, was to leave here and to get our own place.
Lovely.
So this is just expediting that move.
Yes, a little, a kick in the boat.
Yeah.
Well, and I am so grateful and excited for this specific meditation that you're bringing forward in May, because I really feel, again, I feel like that's what I've been asked to do this year, just personally, is to help all of you guys. I mean, help, assist, whatever word I want to use, to really activate all of these parts, have our heart broken open, be loyal to our emotions, know that it's not okay, be activated by our pain and our great connection, as deeply as it may be, and yet also navigate that into real hope and real action and real service in whatever is ours to do. And it sounds like this meditation that you're going to do is going to bring it for us.
We're going to go from the 25th to the 28th, Thursday through Saturday. I'm telling you, people come from around the world. I sold out the one I did in December. We had a long waiting list. So I advise people to register now, because we're going to really purify our awareness, and we're going to really understand the vibrational turbulence that we're all going through, but we're going to understand how to navigate through it by not losing the integrity of who we are, and not losing the integrity, as you said earlier, of noticing the gravity of certain situations on the planet. I'm going to help people walk on earth while their mind and heart is in heaven.
Amen. So with that, John says we've got to go. So Michael, you are welcome in the house of UBN anytime you want, and I will see you Sunday. And until then, bless you. I love you, and I love Agape, and thank you for everything you do from the bottom of my heart to all the people who are there, and then all of the effect that they have to all of their peeps. Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you. Are we off? Hi, Michael, are you still there?
Yes.